Chapter 1. At night in Texas, a scorch mark more than 50 meters long appeared in the desolate desert. At the end of the scorch mark was a huge crater with a diameter of more than 30 meters. In the center of the crater, a spherical spacecraft is embedded in the rock underground. After experiencing extreme high temperatures and violent impacts, the metal shell showed no shape-shifting at all. There was a harsh exhaust sound, and the metal hatch slowly opened. A hand reached out. A tall young man with long black hair walked out of the cabin, a long tail swinging behind him. Broly. Broly. I'm hungry. A burst of irritable children's voices sounded on his shoulders, and a girl with a quill head sat on his shoulders, clenched her hands into small fists, and kept hitting the young man's head. She was so strong that she hit the young man's head with a bang. Seeing that the young man didn't respond, she opened her mouth wide and bit it. The young man grabbed the girl's tail, and the girl immediately seemed to have lost all strength. She fell limply from the young man's shoulders, and was carried by the young man in his hands like a bunny. I'm hungry too, little BD. If you keep making trouble, I'll eat you. Broly looked at his appearance against the glass hatch of the spaceship. The person on the glass is very tall, with a height of 1.87 meters, and the body is only 12 years old. If he was really Broly in Dragon Ball, he would be at least another 45 centimeters taller. He has wild and unruly long black hair, extremely thick eyebrows, and an angular face. According to the aesthetics of the 1980s and 1990s, he could be considered a majestic man. After traveling through time and becoming a Saiyan, he seems to have become particularly irritable, unable to control his anger. Just 30 minutes ago, he was watching Dragon Ball Super, Broly that he had just downloaded in his rental house. For a moment, he was in a trance, and his consciousness appeared in the narrow spaceship, and a deep voice sounded in his mind. Male voice. Ding, congratulations to Saiyan Broly for activating the system is loading, please wait. Broly raised his eyebrows and waited quietly. Just a moment later, the male voice in his mind sounded again. The Saiyan revival system has been loaded. I am King Vegeta. Have you worked hard to revive the Saiyans today? Broly's face looked as ugly as if he had been constipated for a week. King Vegeta should be Vegeta's father. Isn't he a scumbag with only 10,000 combat power? How could he create such a system that is beyond reality? It's also like a MLM class. Moreover, King Vegeta's rich bass sounded in his mind, which really gave him goosebumps. Can you change the system's voice? As soon as Broly finished speaking, a strong electric shock instantly penetrated his body. If he hadn't clamped it quickly, he would have already reached the file size and become incontinent. This system exists to revive the Saiyans, a fighting race. The host is asked not to have any desire for pleasure. Breathing out a puff of black smoke, Broly looked a little embarrassed. He clicked on the system interface, and a property panel immediately popped up in his field of vision. Saiyan Revival, Broly Strength, 1216, 8, Physique, 1216, 8, Agility, 1117, 8, Intelligence, 46, 8, Perception, 14, 8, Charisma, 9, 8, Ability, Saiyan Bloodline, every time you are close to death, your combat power will increase greatly. Angry Form, as the legendary Super Saiyan, when extremely angry, he uses the human form to exert the power of the giant ape form. The speed and physique increase by 5 times, and the judgment, control, and rationality are weakened to half of their original form. 1. Infinite Physical Strength, as the legendary Super Saiyan, you have nearly unlimited physical strength. Ordinary fighting is not enough to exhaust your energy. Skills, none revival points, 0 main mission, occupy a habitat for the Saiyans on this planet. Side mission, after the Saiyans were destroyed on planet Vegeta, the population dropped sharply. Please spread the bloodline as soon as possible to increase the number of Saiyans. System prompt, the rules of the dimensional universe where the host is located are different from this universe. Please estimate your own strength reasonably. Average values are in parentheses. 12 years later, King Frieza with full combat power will come to Earth. Please don't have any hedonism and increase your strength as quickly as possible. Because the points are only 0, he can only click on the properties panel at the moment, and does not have permission to view other pages. As for Frieza, who will come 12 years later, he just smiled. Now he is the legendary Super Saiyan. A small character like Frieza can be crushed with one hand. Chapter 2. Broly was just thinking about the information he got from the system when he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his leg. When he lowered his head, he found that the girl in his hand was biting his calf with her mouth open. Broly. I'm hungry. She raised her eyebrows and shouted angrily. He had a headache. Baby, what's your name? Although the girl was hung upside down, she still said in a very proud tone. Kakarot, my name is Kakarot. I'm hungry, Broly. Broly's lips twitched. What the hell is this setting? No matter how absurd the scene in front of him was, he had no choice but to accept it after it came. When he entered the atmosphere, he had a bird's eye view of the ground, which showed traces of a large number of intelligent life activities. The Saiyan spherical spaceship has definitely attracted their attention, and this is not a place to stay for a long time. Broly took out the combat power detection glasses from the spaceship, put them on his head, then wrapped his arms around the spherical spaceship, preparing to hide the spacecraft in a hidden place. Click! The spacecraft didn't move at all, and his waist twisted. How can this be? Broly rubbed his sore waist. As a senior Dragon Ball fan, he knew that Broly had a combat power of up to 10,000 not long after he was born. How could it be that Broly could not lift a spaceship? He looked at his hands in disbelief and pressed the combat power detection glasses on his left eye. The numbers on the glasses jumped for a while, and finally two numbers appeared, namely 15 and 3. There are only two people here, 15 is himself, and third is probably Kakarot. Is this the reason for what the system calls the universe rule? With a combat power of 15, how should he establish a colony on this planet? Moreover, his strength has shrunk by more than 10 million times. 12 years later, he is not optimistic about facing Frieza with full combat power. It is not suitable to stay here for a long time. Since the spaceship cannot be moved, it can only be left here. Broly held Kakarot in his hands and quickly left the landing site of the spherical spaceship. He pressed the combat power detection glasses. The combat power detection glasses in the original work can easily cover Namek, which is much larger than the Earth. It is easy to detect nearby human settlements. The nearest life settlement is 80 kilometers to the southwest. The Saiyans' physical strength is much stronger than that of the Earthlings. He ran for 20 kilometers in the desert before stopping. The stars and moon in the sky, as well as the plants in the desert, all convinced him that this was the Earth. It's just that Broly isn't sure if this is the Earth in the Dragon Ball world. Relying on the Saiyans' inhuman physical strength, he forcibly chased a North American bighorn sheep until it fell to the ground, peeled it off with a sharp stone, cleaned its internal organs, skewered it with tree branches, and roasted it on a campfire. There was no seasoning. Broly's barbecue skills were also very poor, and because the bighorn sheep was wild, it had a terrible fishy smell, and the barbecued meat tasted simply horrible. But the two of them still ate the whole sheep as quickly as possible until only the skeleton was left. Sleep. Broly wiped his greasy hands in the sand, rested his head on a large rock, and prepared to sleep. Kakarot's small body huddled under his armpit, sleeping soundly. She was 5 years younger than Broly and 7 years older at the moment, but it looked like the age gap between them was more than 10 years. Her head has not been hit like in the original work, and she is still a standard Saiyan child, irritable and ferocious, only showing a trace of childishness when she is asleep. Early in the morning, Broly felt short of breath, and when he woke up, he found that Kakarot had stepped on his face. A strong anger arose in his mind, and he had the idea of tearing her apart. Suppressing the desire for destruction, he stood up. This body did not inherit Broly's explosive fighting power, but instead inherited his easily out-of-control temper. If it weren't for Broly's efforts to control him, Kakarot would have been killed several times by him. This time he did not catch a bighorn sheep, but a large lizard. This lizard was 60 centimeters long, with a very thick body. It had colorful yellow and pink markings on its tawny body and had a good amount of meat. This lizard may be highly poisonous, but Saiyans are never picky about food, so the two roasted the lizard on the campfire and ate it as breakfast. After dealing with the traces, Broly placed Kakarot on his neck and leapt forward. Only 15 points of combat power are absolutely useless. He didn't learn any fighting skills in his previous life, so he could only pick up the knowledge he learned in physical education classes. Ding! The host trains hard to revive the Saiyans. If the host continues to leap 25 kilometers, the system will award 10 revival points and a novice gift pack. Chapter 3. Under the scorching sun in the desert, I jumped nearly 10 kilometers in one breath. Although I had enough physical strength, my body was about to reach its limit. But the prompts that popped up from the system made him grit his teeth and persevere. In this strange world, he has a very strong sense of insecurity, and only stronger strength can give him a sense of security. Drops of sweat fell on the scorching desert, instantly evaporating into heat. Every muscle was trembling, his throat was as dry as if it was about to smoke, Kakarot's light body on his back was as heavy as 1,000 pounds at the moment, and the heat from the scorching sun in the sky seemed to dry out the earth. Such a harsh environment only aroused the anger originating from Broly in Broly's body. His already muscular body suddenly grew taller again. New strength surged out of his body and he jumped the remaining 15 kilometers in one breath. Ding! Well done! They are indeed the proud Saiyan people. Please accept 10 revival points and a newbie gift package. The system store has also been unlocked simultaneously. King Vegeta's encouraging voice sounded in his mind. Broly forcibly shook off the sense of disobedience in his mind, suppressed his fatigue, rubbed his hands, and opened the novice gift package. Congratulations to the host, you have obtained the skill Saiyan fighting skill. Saiyan's fighting skills seemed to be very strong. Did they belong to the death god's fighting skills? Broly was a little surprised, but before he was happy for a long time, his face froze. Etc. This Saiyan shouldn't be that Saiyan. Broly desperately flipped through the stream of information pouring into his mind. He guessed right. Saiyan was indeed the most powerful Mr. Satan on Earth. The strongest combat power he showed was to smash 14 tiles with his bare hands in front of S.H.I.E.L.D. Forget it, it's better than nothing. I hope that after learning Satan's fighting skills, my hairline won't recede like his. He is still very satisfied with this long black and thick hair. He casually threw a few punches and kicks with his Satan-style fighting skills, and Broly easily made an explosion in the air. With his strong strength, he finally no longer has to throw arrogant punches. It took him a moment to realize why he was suddenly so quiet. He grabbed his head and grabbed Kakarot who was riding on his neck. Her face was red, she was sweating a lot, and her skin was a little burning. Although she was a Saiyan, she was still just a child with a weak constitution. She suffered from heat stroke after being exposed to the blazing desert sun continuously without any shade. In such a hot desert, her mild heat stroke can easily develop into heat stroke, and then acute kidney failure and liver failure, which are very dangerous. Broly directly dug a large sand pit in the leeward area with his hands. The sand under the ground was still very cool, with a temperature of only 25 or 6 degrees. Putting Kakarot into the cool sand pit, Broly took off the elastic combat sleeves on his upper body, wearing only a combat vest. The technology of Frisia's army is very advanced, and the slim combat sleeves are very elastic and breathable. Even if they transform into a giant ape, they will not burst. Broly fixed the battle sleeves with wooden stakes and stretched them into a large piece, covering the sand pit and preventing the sun from directly shining on Kakarot below. If she was exposed to the sun again, she would probably become the first Saiyan to die. Baby, I'm going to find someone to rescue you right now. Don't let me die. He said, took steps and ran towards the southwest. When running at full strength, his speed is similar to that of a galloping horse, and he can cover 3 to 4 meters in one step. Sweat flowed freely on the strong muscles, and in an instant it was dried by the scorching sun, forming layers of salt flowers. After running for more than 30 minutes, he finally ran out of the desert and saw a patch of green. It was a farm, planted with patches of corn, a large green area. After crossing hundreds of acres of cornfields, he discovered a wooden country house. There are 2 activity sources inside, one with combat power 2 and one with combat power 1. Broly rang the doorbell, and the 2's combat powers instantly changed. One was raised to 5, the other was raised to 4, and they took the guns in their hands. What's the matter, boy? A middle-aged white man held a double-barreled shotgun in his hand and looked wary. His daughter was standing behind him with a similar shotgun in her hand. The man was a little surprised to see that the person knocking on the door was an Asian. First, there were very few Asians here, and second, it was hard to believe that there were such muscular people among Asians. Moreover, this Asian was also dressed very strangely. He was wearing a strange single-sided glasses, a strange vest, a furry belt, and tight pants with a serious bulge, which was really eye-catching. This is Texas. A few dozen kilometers further south is the U.S. Mexico border. Mexican smugglers dig holes on the border like prairie dogs. Mexican gangs use mules to transport drugs for the gangs. This vast, sparsely populated land is no longer under police control. Chapter 4. My companion is sick. I need to borrow your car to take her to the hospital. Broly said in somewhat awkward English. You can go to the White Farm 3 kilometers away and ask. I believe they will be kind enough to lend you the car. The middle-aged man said something perfunctory and prepared to lock the door, but found that the door did not move at all. I'm not asking for your opinion, give me the car. Broly's anger surged, his pupils shrank to a point, and a terrifying aura surged from his body. The middle-aged man was frightened and took a few steps back. Just as he was about to raise the rifle in his hand, he found that the barrel of the gun was held in the hand of the Asian in front of him, and an irresistible force came from his hand. The gun was taken away easily. Don't be impulsive. Don't be impulsive. We'll give the car to you right now. The middle-aged man's daughter took the car keys out of her father's trouser pocket and threw them to Broly. This is a hot girl with a hot body, because at home, she only wears a t-shirt and hot pants, and her legs are dazzlingly white. You guys come with me, bring ice and salt water, and don't play any tricks on me. After Broly finished speaking, he tightened his grip on the double-barreled shotgun and bent it into a U-shape. Mutant. The middle-aged man had a look of fear on his face and immediately gave up resistance, while the girl had a look of curiosity. The car on the farm was a somewhat dilapidated Ford pickup truck. Broly sat in the passenger seat and monitored the middle-aged man driving. The girl sat in the back seat carrying a medical kit. Are you crazy? You left a patient in the desert, 35 kilometers away, and she should be dead by now. As soon as she heard that the target's location was 35 kilometers away, the girl immediately became angry. It only took me more than half an hour to run here. With her physical condition, nothing would happen to her. After Broly finished speaking, the girl covered her mouth in surprise. She thought Broly had walked all day and all night to reach the farm. The old pickup truck roared, raising a cloud of smoke and dust on the desert. The middle-aged man pushed the pickup truck's speed to the limit, just to get rid of this plague god as soon as possible. 20 minutes later, the pickup truck came to a stop where Broly had dug the hole. Broly got off the car, his eyebrows furrowed. His combat uniform covering the top of the sand pit was gone. There were messy footprints all over the edge of the sand pit. Kakarot disappeared. Who would be in this area? He picked up the middle-aged man's collar and lifted him up. Cough, 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 let go, I can't breathe. The middle-aged man discovered that Broly's hand was stronger than a bear, and he was about to break his neck. The mules of the Reyes group. They are smuggling hallucinogens around here. All goods from Mexico and Colombia are transported to the United States through them. Aren't you from the Reyes group? He said with difficulty. The reason why he immediately calmed down before was because he suspected that Broly was a member of the Reyes group. There are many mutant members in the Reyes group who are ruthless and do all kinds of evil. Those who offend them have their families and families destroyed. If they want to survive, they have no choice but to flee Texas. The FBI has planned several operations against the Reyes group, but all of them failed with heavy losses. The middle-aged man was just an ordinary farmer and he didn't dare to provoke these vicious criminals. They're dead. Broly pressed the combat power detection glasses on his head. The glasses had already recorded Kakarot's combat power characteristics, and he could easily locate her no matter where she was on the earth. Shame of the Saiyans, ding! As a fighting nation, Saiyans were actually kidnapped. This is a shame for Saiyans. Please rescue the missing Kakarot, the mission will reward 20 revival points. A brand new Dodge Ram was driving down the interstate, playing Talika's Fade Top at full volume. Life It Sees Will Fade Away Drift Further. Every day in the passenger seat was a bald Hispanic young man with a big beard, holding Kakarot's tail in his hand. His body was covered with tooth marks and scratches, and was dripping with blood. It was obvious that he was subdued after a hard struggle. Fake. Benny, I really don't know why you took this kid back to El Paso. We still have 5 kilograms of goods in the trunk. If something happens, Burton will kill us. He tied Kakarot tightly with a rope. What do you know, Marlin, did you see her tail? Have you ever seen a child of this age have such strength? This is a mutant, brother. We gave her to Burton and sold her to Mexico. Juarez, we can make at least 800,000, 800,000. Do you understand, brother, 800,000 is enough for us to brave the police patrols and make 20 trips. Chapter 5. There is an underground boxing market in Juarez that specializes in acquiring mutants for brutal and bloody fights. Mexican and South American gang leaders, important officials in Washington, Wall Street investors, and Hollywood stars are all customers of this fighting arena. The adult mutant is worth $1.2 million, and the young mutant is worth $2 million. Even if it is 60% deducted by burden, it is still a lot of money for the two of them. Young mutants are of high value in training. After being brainwashed and brutally trained, they become excellent cannon fodder and bodyguards. Many gang leaders like to pay high prices. What's more, this mutant is female and even more valuable. Following the interstate, they soon returned to El Paso and pulled into a tire store. A pair of eyes stared at their Dodge Ram warily through the observation window of the rolling shutter door. "We are closed today." "Stop it, Bates, we just left here with the goods 40 minutes ago." There was silence in the tire shop for a moment, and the rolling shutter door opened, allowing Marin and the two to drive in. Before the car parked at the workstation, several rifles were pressed against the car windows, aiming at the two people in the car from all directions. "This is against the rules, Benny. Even if you encounter problems on the road, you are not allowed to come back here. You messed up." "Man." A bald man with tattoos all over his body walked to the car window with a ferocious expression. No, Louis, there are absolutely no policemen following us. You don't know what we met on the way, a mutant. He's only 7 or 8 years old. This is a lot of money, and Bolton will definitely not blame us." Louis' expression softened. If the two of them had captured a mutant, the rash change of route would indeed be forgiven. Broly opened a bottle of water, took a small sip, picked up a donut from the car, and ate it in several bites. Now his condition is not the best, and there is very likely to be a fierce battle next, and he will have to adjust his condition. "May I have your name?" he asked the middle-aged man in the driver's seat. Earl Sharp." The middle-aged man was obviously very nervous and his hands were shaking constantly. "No, your name is Cade Eagle." Broly pulled out a package from under his seat with Cade Eagle's name written on it. "I remember you. What you have to do now is to park the car here and wait for me to rescue my companions before taking us away. There will be no accidents and no danger." "Definitely, if you are smarter, that's not necessarily the case." As he spoke, he opened the door and walked towards the tire shop 200 meters away. The combat power detection glasses worn on the head were constantly beating, detecting the combat power and positions of several people in the tire shop. 8, 11, 7, 8, 9, 3. As Broly walked, he tried his best to arouse his emotions and make himself angry. Unless ordinary Saiyans reach the critical point of Super Saiyans, pure anger cannot increase their combat power. But he is different. As a legendary Super Saiyan, he does not need a full moon to increase his combat power dramatically through anger. It can even directly enter the angry state after the anger reaches the critical point. Diddy Broly's battle in the combat power detection glasses is constantly beating, and power is constantly pouring out of his body. He started charging in the direction of the tire shop. Cade was stunned when he saw Broly rushing towards him. Is he an idiot? In the tire shop, Louis crossed his shoulders and looked at Kakarot in the car. Is she really a mutant? Besides having a tail, what else is special about her? Marin hurriedly showed the wounds on his body. She's really strong. I'm almost no match for her. Louis looked at Marin with suspicion, and suddenly he raised his hand to signal everyone to be silent. Did you hear anything? The next moment, the aluminum alloy rolling door suddenly twisted and shape-shifted violently, as if it was hit by an angry elephant, and flew up. Louis was caught off guard and was hit head-on. His skull was smashed, and his brains and blood spurted out on the floor. Experience +5. The fierce sunlight came in, and the eyes of several people were sore from being stabbed. All they could vaguely see was a tall man rushing in. Maha fake! A gunman raised his rifle and prepared to fire. The next moment, the rifle in his hand was hammered into a U-shape. Broly shrank his body to avoid the bullet fired from the other side. At the moment, he was not sure whether he could withstand the close-range direct shot of the rifle bullet. Chapter 6. He grabbed the foot of the gunman next to him and threw it directly, hitting the two gunmen on the opposite side. Then he pressed his hands on the side door of the Dodge Ram and opened it violently. The heavy car body rolled like a roller, crushing the three people stacked on top of each other into a ball of meat and hitting the wall. The whole building was shaking violently. Experience +15. Under the huge force, the sturdy Dodge Ram has some shape-shifting, but the overall frame is still very intact. Broly ripped off the car door that was stuck on the car body. Benny raised his pistol and aimed it at Broly. His whole body was shaking violently with fear, his face was pale, he was sweating profusely, and his teeth were chattering uncontrollably. Before he could pull the trigger, his hand was held by Broly. With a little force, the palm and the pistol in his hand were crushed into a mixture of flesh and parts. Benny looked at the hand that could be wrapped directly into the dumpling in disbelief, and screamed like a woman. "Your daughter is here and she is not hurt. Let me go." Malone raised his hands, and he saw the tail on Broly's waist. Deep fear seemed to grasp his heart firmly like a palm. Broly took Kakarot and tore the rope tied to her with one finger. Kakarot, who regained his freedom, immediately hugged his waist and cried loudly, wiping all the snot and saliva on his combat uniform. Broly glanced at her with disgust, took back the combat sleeves placed on the car seat, put them on his shoulders, squeezed them with both hands, and neatly broke the necks of the two people in the car. Experience +6. The enemy's fear. As an enemy of the Saiyans, there is only one ending: destruction. Destroy the Reyes group. The mission rewards 60 revival points. Broly walked out of the tire shop and found that Cade had parked the car obediently at the intersection and did not take the opportunity to escape. He opened the car door and got in. He picked up the salt water and fed it to Kakarot in his arms, then placed an ice pack on her forehead to lower her body temperature. Kakarot was already very tired, huddled in Broly's arms, and fell asleep after a while. Although the father and daughter in the car did not see the fighting in the tire store, they heard gunshots and loud noises coming from inside. Broly only went in for 2 minutes and then walked out unscathed. It was obvious who was the winner. "Is she your daughter?" Tessa Eagle lay on the car seat, looked around, looked at Kakarot, and asked curiously. Her father was frightened and hurriedly used his eyes to signal his daughter to be honest. She was too naive. Mutant was far more cruel than she had imagined. "I'm only 12. Broly replied to her, ignoring the shock on the girl's face, and motioned for Cade to drive away. The breeze blows from the car window, carrying the unique wild atmosphere of Texas. Broly found that he had underestimated Satan's fighting skills. Satan could only be a funny character in the Dragon Ball plane with its explosive combat power. But his world championship was won with his fists. This fighting skill is not weak. The father and daughter have been mentioning mutants since the beginning, and also mentioned the Stark group that sells weapons. It seems that this is the Marvel universe. I just don't know if it's the comic book universe or the movie universe. The comic universe is very dangerous, and the upper limit of power is extremely high. Even the Saiyans can't do well when facing the top combat power of this universe. Moreover, the comic universe has been restarted many times, and the settings are complicated and confusing. The movie universe is much simpler. Although there are still buggy characters like Captain America who can compete with anyone 50-50, the overall strength can still be determined. But he is still not sure, because of the different rules of the universe, whether the Super Saiyan can still reach the world-destroying combat power of the original universe. Experience, 2,650. Killing the gang members in the tire shop gave him a total of 26 experience points. If he wants to upgrade, he needs to kill at least 5 more people. Ding! Well done! The rescue mission is completed and the 20 revival points have been received. King Vegeta's voice sounded right away. Broly opened the system store. There was a dazzling array of things in the store, but unfortunately he couldn't afford most of the items in it. Kamizen Ryu Martial Arts, 80 points. Caucasan Ryu Martial Arts, 85 points. Somersault Cloud, 60 points. Oolong Transformation, 25 points. Puer Transformation, 35 points. Frisia Group Healing Device, 240 points. Frisia Legion Battle Suit, 6 points. Almost all abilities that have appeared in Dragon Ball can be redeemed, but even those very practical abilities in the early stages cannot be redeemed by him. As for the magic medicine fairy beans in the Dragon Balls, one requires 300 points, which completely broke Broly's plan of beating himself to a near-death state and then using the fairy beans to heal his wounds. Chapter 7. After a while, the car was driven back to the farm and parked in front of the wheat field. Cade Eagle looked at Broly with pleading eyes. He was afraid of being killed and silenced. "Lend me this car. You guys get out of the car first." After he finished speaking, he took out a roll of dollars from his arms and threw it to Cade. "He found this in the tire shop. This is the ceiling fee. Remember to keep your mouth shut. If the police know about it, it means that the Reyes group also knows about it. I believe they will be eager to get clues about the attacker from your mouth." Situated on the U.S. Mexico border, it is running a prosperous drug transport business. I believe the Reyes group must have bribed a lot of criminal police officers. After Broly finished speaking, he started the pickup truck and dragged out a trail of yellow smoke in the desert. Combat detection glasses showed that there was no human activity around the spherical spacecraft. It was so desolate that humans didn't notice the landing spacecraft. Don't overestimate S.H.I.E.L.D's monitoring of the Earth. Thor's Meow hammer fell to Earth and was discovered first by a group of rednecks in New Mexico. A winch was installed on the front of the pickup truck for self-rescue. Broly used the steel cable to hang the spherical spacecraft and hoist it into the bed of the pickup truck. The spherical spacecraft was transported to another hidden location, dug out of the sand, and buried in it. Broly drove the pickup truck back to the farm. He opened his combat power detection glasses and found that there were only 2 people in the farm. Quite honest. He parked the car at the gate of the farm, held Kakarot by the back of his collar, pushed the door open and walked in, "Get some food." Tessa Eagle put her hands on her waist with some dissatisfaction. "Do you think this is a place like a family hotel?" Broly took out another roll of dollars and threw it into Lily Sharp's arms. "Food expenses." Lily became even more angry, her green eyes almost blazing. Cade hurriedly snatched the dollar from her hand and said with a smile, "Let's get ready. What do you want to eat?" "Tessa will go to college next year, and the farm he runs cannot afford the expensive tuition. Let's roast 2 cows first." With the terrifying appetite of the Isaiahs, it is still unknown whether Cade will make a loss or gain. Ha! Cade was stunned. Kakarot was holding a cow leg bone about the same size as her, gnawing on the tendon with a ferocious expression. The ovens on the farm can only be used to roast suckling pig at best, and finally the whole cow is roasted on a campfire with large iron skewers. It is very difficult to control the heat of the whole beef. Some parts are already roasted and some parts are not yet cooked. But neither of them was picky, because the spices were used, and Kakarot, who had never seen much of the world, was so greedy by the aroma that he drooled all over the floor. In the end, Broly ate half of one, and Kakarot took care of the other half. Tons, tons, tons. He picked up a 5-gallon bucket of purified water, poured water into his mouth, wiped his mouth, and washed his hands. "Do you know where the Reyes group's headquarters is?" The revival points were obviously very precious, and he had no reason to give up on this mission. Moreover, the Reyes group has a large group of elite monsters waiting for him to brush. He wants to see the difference between the effect of upgrade and his own training, so as to decide how to develop in the future. Unfortunately, although the Reyes group is notorious, few people know where their lair is. Their drug lord counterpart Mata is more eager to eliminate them than the FBI and the Drug Enforcement Administration. The 3 ringleaders have been staying in Juarez, Mexico for a long time and will never cross the border to Texas. They remotely control this huge criminal organization that includes 147 mules, hundreds of dark spots, and more than 10,000 members. In an abandoned park 5 kilometers away from the tire shop, Broly changed into a pair of khaki pants and a short t-shirt. Apart from his strong muscles and fierce eyes that were a bit eye-catching, Broly looked nothing like an ordinary Texas farmer. Any difference? At the moment, he was wearing combat power detection glasses, practicing Saiyan fighting skills, and using the glasses to monitor the tire shop from several kilometers away. The tragedy in the tire store was discovered half an hour later, and witnesses immediately called the police. It didn't take long for the El Paso Police Department to hand over the case to the FBI. This type of suspected mutant crime was beyond the scope of their ability. There is no way an average human could push a Dodge Ram weighing over 2 tons more than 3 meters and crush 3 people into a pulp. In the past few days, there have been people with higher than average combat capabilities appearing around the tire store. Some of them are FBI agents and some are members of the Reyes group, all trying to find out the identity of the attacker. Broly stopped punching, and he could see that his satanic fighting skill had reached level 9. The martial arts ability of this body is very astonishing. Satan's fighting skills are not very complicated martial arts to begin with, but in a few days, he has reached a level that Satan has never been able to reach. Chapter 8. The LV9 level Satan fighting skill provides him with 2 passive skills. Satan fighting skills LV4, Steel and Iron Bones. Long and arduous training has made your body tougher than the limit. Toughness plus 5 Satan fighting skills level 7, Iron Fist. Exercise close to the limit gives you strength beyond human limits, and the surging energy gives your fists destructive power beyond the limit. Satan in Dragon Ball should only be at level 4. He survived the Cell game with his Steel and Iron Bones. And his daughter Bidalai should have surpassed level 7 and mastered the power of Chi, so that she could master the air dance technique in a short period of time. Broly could feel that his muscles and skin were much tougher, and there was a destructive force ready to move within his body. It's just that there is no skill in controlling Chi in Satan's fighting skills, and this power can only be released simply through fists and kicks. Picking up the towel and wiping his face, he picked up the hoodie he had put aside and put it on, covering his very conspicuous long hair and combat power detection eyes. The tall body was walking against the flow of people, like a great white shark hunting among the fish. Broly's target was a middle-aged man with a somewhat vicissitudes of face. His hands naturally rested on the middle-aged man's shoulders. With a little force of his arms, he was trapped so that he could not move or even make a sound. The two of them walked into a remote alley, acting like very close old friends. As soon as he let go, the middle-aged man tried to fight back. He should have received extremely strict training, be ruthless in his attacks, and be proficient in joint techniques. But under Broly's hands, he was like a baby with no resistance at all, and was easily restrained again. I mean no harm. Broly threw the pistol he took out back to him. This kind of toy can't hurt me. Alejandro took the gun awkwardly, held it in his hand, and looked at Broly with wary eyes. This character comes from Sicario, a very good movie. Are you the mutant who killed everyone in the tire store? Broly didn't deny it. I also know you should be from the FBI, and you have a deep grudge against the Reyes group. Alejandro is obviously a very deep-minded person, and his expression does not change at all. 3 days ago, you appeared at the scene with the FBI team, and you have been watching the scene alone for several days. You also secretly imprisoned a member of the Reyes group and killed him after some torture. Broly continued that through the combat detection glasses, he could deduce what happened at that time. Alejandro's eyes changed slightly. He was already very cautious. How did this mutant track him? Could it be that he was a spiritual mutant, but why was he so strong? Unfortunately, this person's judgment was wrong, and he was not from the FBI. He is the one who does the dirty work for the CIA. What do you want to do? He asked in a somewhat hoarse voice. Broly took control of the conversation. Although he could rely on tracking members of the Reyes group to their headquarters, he still wanted to find an assistant. An assistant who is proficient in closing and FBI investigative techniques can help him eliminate clues. He doesn't want to reveal his identity to the FBI and S.H.I.E.L.D too early. What did Reyes group do to you? Alejandro, who seems to have a deep hatred for the Reyes group and even violates FBI rules, is obviously the best partner. It was nothing, just beheaded my wife and threw my daughter into a pool of sulfuric acid. Alejandro's tone was calm, but Broly could see the anger boiling like lava from his eyes. Then, are you willing to come together and take down the entire Reyes group? Broly said, looking at his face. Alejandro's expression finally changed, and he saw the possibility of revenge. How many mutants do you have? He put the pistol back in the holster under his arm. Broly pointed at himself. Only myself. Alejandro's face suddenly darkened, and he turned around to leave. It is never numbers that determine combat effectiveness. Broly said as he glanced around and selected a sturdy fire hydrant. Violent flying kick. Satan once used this move to kick S.H.I.E.L.D in the head. Although it had no power, it was full of momentum. When Broly used this move, the power was completely different. The fire hydrant that was half buried on the ground was uprooted by the force of his legs and kicked into the air. The cast iron hydrant was kicked directly into a U-shape. High-pressure water rushed out from the underground pipes instantly, turning the two of them into drowned rats. Chapter 9. How about it? Although he was a little embarrassed, Broly still put on the posture of a master. Let's get out of here quickly. The fire brigade will soon find the pressure changes in the fire pipes and locate it here. Alejandro shook his head helplessly. The crime Broly committed in the tire shop was a bit rough and left a lot of clues. If it weren't for the fact that there was no information about him in the FBI's criminal database, his identity would have been exposed long ago. The two got into Alejandro's car, and he very carefully cleaned up the traces left by the two of them, and took away the bent fire hydrant. So what's your plan? Alejandro asked, holding a towel over his shoulders. It's very simple. We follow a member of the Reyes group and find their leader. I rush in and kill everyone I see. After killing everyone, you go in and clear out the clues. Broly said. Alejandro finally couldn't maintain his facial expression. He now regretted letting Broly get into his car. But after hesitating for a moment, he still put his hope on Broly. The Reyes group is not simple. The Drug Enforcement Administration and the CIA were very concerned when launching operations against them. There is a huge force protecting this criminal organization. If the procedures are even the slightest bit illegal, the operation will be cancelled. Everything was so difficult that he saw no hope of revenge. Listen, you are indeed very strong, but you can't be so reckless. I have a plan, which is more feasible. We can pretend to be people from the Mata group. I know the identities of several Reyes group cadres, and there is information about Reyes' daughter. The Mata group's killing style is very easy to imitate. We used their methods to kill a few cadres, and then tied Reyes' daughter to the Mata group's territory. These two groups have been in friction since a long time ago and have accumulated a lot of hatred. They will definitely fall into war. When their strength is weakened due to the war, it will be time for us to take action. Broly thought for a moment and had to admit that Alejandro's plan was more feasible, and he could kill one more monster from the Mata group, so why not do it? In the bar, Alejandro held a bottle of cold beer in his hand and took a sip. I quit, Matt. He said to Matt Graver sitting on the edge. Matt Graver is a CIA agent who specializes in doing dirty work for the CIA that goes outside the rules. He is notorious even in the powerful CIA department. At the moment, he leads a special forces unit whose main task is to eliminate the criminal organization of the Reyes group. Alejandro was originally a Mexican prosecutor, but his family was ruined because of his opposition to the Reyes group. He had always wanted revenge, and Matt gave him the chance. What's wrong? You can't stand that FBI bitchy anymore. The CIA does not have law enforcement authority within the United States and can only conduct law enforcement jointly with the FBI. The FBI sent a female agent named Kate, whose professional ethics were a little too strong, which caused a lot of trouble for their operation. You can think of it this way, I want to take some time off. Alejandro replied. Boom. Matt slapped his hand on the bar, and the loud noise startled the surrounding drinkers. He lowered his voice and said to Alejandro, Don't think of me as a fool, Alex, are you hooked up with the mutant who was killing people in the tire shop? You are so crazy, you are actually cooperating with the Mutant Brotherhood, you will lose your life. The Mutant Brotherhood has long been recognized as a mutant terrorist organization. Being associated with them has no place in the United States or even the entire Americas. Alejandro knew that his lame excuse could not be hidden from Matt. He shook his head and said, he is not a member of the Mutant Brotherhood. I am sure of this. He has no taste of the Mutant Brotherhood, and he is very indifferent to the rights and interests of the mutant. He revealed his plan to Matt. Matt hesitation for a moment. You don't have to quit. I will apply to the higher UPS. The feasibility of this plan is good. If possible, the mutant can also be absorbed into the CIA. Alejandro shook his head. I will not leak information about him. After all, I don't want to die yet. He has seen Broly's magical tracking and surveillance methods, and guessed that it should be a telepathy ability similar to Professor X, a combination of Professor X and Wolverine. No one would want to be his enemy. Alejandro stood up as he spoke, picked up the lighter on the wine table, hid it in his pocket, and walked towards the door of the bar. Chapter 10. You know how much I want revenge, and I hope you don't stop me. Matt shrugged, picked up his beer and continued drinking. Returning to the safe house in El Paso, Alejandro suddenly put his hand on his lower back vigilantly, pulled out the pistol from the holster, held the gun, and walked into the room cautiously. Don't be nervous, it's me. Broly sat carelessly on the sofa in the safe house. How's it going? Is the deal settled? Alejandro holstered his pistol, walked into the kitchen, made a few sandwiches and put them on the dinner plate. Matt will not stop us and will provide necessary help. At least the border inspection will not check our car. He picked up a sandwich and took a few bites. We are going to Mexico today. After finishing his sandwich, he opened the secret door of the cabinet and took out 2 large bags of equipment. Can you use firearms? Definitely. Broly said. Although his fists are much more powerful than rifles, they are far less efficient in killing people. So he exchanged his Renaissance points for this ability. Lan-Ki shooting skills. This ability only costs 5 points, but it is very practical. After all, even with a submachine gun, it is not easy to hit Kame Sennin. Alejandro nodded, took out a rifle from the equipment bag, and threw it to Broly. HK-433, 12-inch barrel, the latest product launched by HK Company. CAG drum, loaded with 100 rounds. Broly played with the rifle in his hand. The fine workmanship and precise mechanical structure made this rifle more like a handicraft than a weapon. Do drug traffickers use such good weapons? In my impression, they seem to be using old rifles like AK-47, right? Alejandro shook his head. The Mata Group is not a small player. Their assets are about $25 billion. They will not use the rags of the last century. Diaz is a high-level lawyer for the Reyes Group. He has a large number of contacts in the Mexican law enforcement agencies and has bribed countless police officers for Reyes. He also advocates lobbying, trying to change Mexican laws and create new opportunities for the Reyes Group. A more relaxed environment. He grabbed a lot of wealth from it and owned a mansion with more than 100 rooms and an artificial lake filled with ferocious fish collected from all over the world. 3 strong bodyguards surrounded him as he walked out of the Bank of Mexico commercial financial building and got into the back seat of a Maybach S560. In this tallest and most expensive office building in Mexico, he rented an entire floor as the office space of his law firm. The heavy luxury car drove out of the parking space slightly under the powerful engine. Just as it was about to enter the main road, a dilapidated van suddenly rushed out and blocked the road. The car door opened, and a heavily armed gangster wearing a skull hood directly raised his rifle and shot at the Maybach S560. The front windshield of the luxury car was instantly filled with bullet holes, but most of the bullets did not penetrate the bulletproof glass. There was a roar from the engine compartment, and the bodyguards in the car tried to forcefully drive away the van blocking the front. Cut! Broly threw away the rifle in his hand, faced the oncoming luxury car without dodge, stepped on the front of the luxury car, and stopped the entire car with brute force. The tires rubbed against the ground violently, emitting a stream of hot black smoke. The engine roared, but the entire car did not move at all. The bodyguard in the car rolled down the window in panic, stretched out his rifle and tried to shoot. Bang! Bang! Alejandro, who was in the driver's seat of the van, had already gotten out of the car and raised his rifle to kill them all. Diaz opened the car door, moved his bloated body, and ran towards the financial building. Boom! A cloud of blood mist burst out from his feet, his fat body fell heavily to the ground, and his glasses flew out. His strong desire to survive made him crawl up from the ground and continue running limping. Boom! The injured leg was shot again, and now Diaz could no longer run and was squirming on the ground like a fat maggot. Alejandro walked slowly, picked up the glasses that fell on the ground, and threw them on Diaz. Put it on. He pointed the rifle at Diaz and spoke calmly. Diaz shivered as he picked up his glasses and put them on. Alejandro pulled off his hood so Diaz could see his face clearly. Diaz obviously recognized his identity, his pupil shrank, and he was about to say something. Goodbye, my friend. Chapter 11. Alejandro didn't give him a chance to speak. Bang 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 bang. The hail of bullets turned Diaz's fat body into a ball of rotten flesh. He looked at the footprints on the hood of the car, pulled the latch of a grenade, lifted the hood, and threw it in. Alejandro took out his dagger, cut off the right ears of all the corpses present, put them in his pockets and took them away. This was a fixed method used by the Mata Group to demonstrate to the enemy. A siren sounded not far away on Reforma Avenue, one of the busiest streets in Mexico City, next to Chapultepec Park. It is one of the priorities of the Mexican police to maintain order. We should go. Alejandro put his hood back on, sat in the driver's seat, and threw the bag containing the ears onto the passenger seat. Broly leaned out, grabbed the window frame of the van with one hand, clamped the assault rifle with the other hand, and fired at the approaching police car. The recoil of the rifle was almost non-existent to him. Bang! Bang bang! A cloud of sparks erupted from the engine compartment of the police car, and the engine was pierced by a bullet. The police car tilted sharply and hit the road. The police officers inside quickly stopped the car, abandoned the car and fled. Broly put away his rifle, sat back down, closed the car door, and said with a sullen face. You just stole 4 of my heads. He just fought hard and got no experience. Alejandro was familiar with the route through Mexico City. After a few turns, the sound of sirens was almost gone. There was something strange about him being so obsessed with killing Broly. Don't worry, there are still opportunities ahead. Broly turned the safety on his rifle, took out the magazine and started loading bullets into it. The next target is the Reyes Group's drug factory, located in a hidden car repair shop. It can produce about 20 tons of methamphetamine a year and is the largest of the Reyes Group's 50 factories. The methamphetamine, along with high-purity drugs from Colombia, Bolivia, and Peru, was transported through border tunnels to Texas and then transported to various states via mules. This is a line flowing with gold, bringing abundant cash flow to Reyes Group. Therefore, this important car repair shop is very hidden, with more than 80 heavily armed soldiers on duty to guard it, and there are sentinels on the periphery. How did you find it there? Broly asked curiously. As a car repair shop, its power consumption is too high, and its water consumption and sewage discharge exceed standards. The Reyes Group thinks it is very covered, but in fact the CIA has discovered this place long ago. Alejandro said. The car repair shop is in a town on the outskirts of Mexico City. Mexico's infrastructure is very imperfect. There are only more than 10 kilometers of roads after leaving the city, and the rest are dirt roads. Dust was rising into the sky along the way, and outside the car window there was only an endless wilderness with clumps of Halos Island amodendron trees growing there. Be vigilant, our cars are too conspicuous now. Alejandro squinted his eyes and observed the movements on both sides. A settlement appeared in front of the skyline, with dilapidated buildings and barricades on the road. Several Hispanic men with fierce looks on their faces stood beside the barricades. They are all members of the Reyes Group and guard the only route to the garage. What are you going to do? They said in Spanish. I was the tour guide, and there was a Yankee in the back seat who wanted to take some starry sky photography in the desert of Mexico. Broly didn't understand Spanish, so when he saw Alejandro talking about himself, he hurriedly raised the SLR camera in his hand to signal. The Hispanic man looked at Broly and stared at the camera in his eyes. He licked his plump lips. The camera looked very valuable. He said with some ferocity. Give me that camera and go back. Broly didn't understand what he said and looked at Alejandro. Alejandro shook his head and whistled. The Hispanic man wanted to say something else, but a hand stretched out from the car and grabbed his neck. His eyes popped out, and he only had time to make a slight ho-ho sound before he was crushed to death. Several people on the side were shot down before they could clearly see the situation of their companions. Do it. Don't let them notify the people at the garage. Alejandro opened the door, got out of the driver's seat, used the van as a cover, and shot at everyone in the settlement. Broly was afraid that he would steal all the heads, so he pulled out his rifle from under the seat, raised his hand and shot. He turned on the fully automatic mode, and his hands were like a vice, holding the rifle firmly in place. The rifle did not rise at all due to the recoil. Chapter 12. With the muffled sound of bullets penetrating the human body, the unprepared gunman was instantly shot down and his body fell to the ground. Broly held the gun in both hands, kicked the door open, and then retreated behind the wall. A burst of gunfire erupted in the room, and the bullets bit into the wall, peeling off large chunks of cement. He broke the window with his elbow and fired through the window in the direction of the gunfire. Several shots knocked down the gunman inside. He is responsible for clearing the building of enemies, while Alejandro is on guard with a gun to prevent anyone from escaping from the settlement. Accompanied by bursts of gunfire, everyone in the entire settlement was quickly killed and injured. They never imagined that the reason for their death was just a fool who wanted to take advantage of the camera. Ding! Congratulations to the host for reaching level 4 and gaining 3 skill points and 1 attribute point. There were about 40 people in the entire settlement, who contributed more than 200 experience points to him. Adding on the previous experience, Broly was promoted 3 levels in a row, reaching level 4. It's just that the experience required for each upgrade is doubled. Now at level 4, the experience required for upgrade is 400 points. The rule is that you get 1 skill point for every level you upgrade, and you get 1 attribute point for every 3 levels you upgrade. Attribute points are much more precious than skill points. He has no hesitation and adds attribute points to strength. All the muscles in his body suddenly tightened, and a surge of power surged out from deep within his body. He felt that his strength had increased by about 1/3. This is a bit scary. The improvement he made through continuous training during this period is far less than the improvement made by adding points. Moreover, intelligence, which is difficult to train, can also be improved by adding points. It seems that attribute points are more precious than he expected. Who is there? Broly suddenly shouted low and picked up a half-file-size man who was about 13 or 14 years old from a piece of grass. His face was full of panic, his face was extremely pale, and his whole body was shaking. He knelt directly on the ground and was about to beg for mercy. Boom! The boy was killed in one blow, and his lifeless body fell limply to the ground. Broly put away his gun and sat back in the car. Alejandro whistled. You were much more decisive than I thought. I thought I needed to help you with your shot. Broly sat on the seat and closed his eyes to relax. Since he chose to pick up a gun and become a warrior, don't even think about getting away by kneeling down. Alejandro shrugged, cut off a few ears hastily, put them in his pocket, shook the ears in the bag. He cleaned up the scene, picked up all the shell casings and bullets, and left the body with Broly's fingerprints is taken away. Although the level of the Mexican police is not high, he still did not leave any clues at the scene due to professional habits. He threw the bag with the ears on the passenger seat, got into the car, took a cigarette and took a long puff. What we're going to do next will drive the entire Reyes group crazy. Broly said nonchalantly. I just love making people crazy. Hey, you guys are outside the garage door. Two gunmen with rifles looked warily at the van that stopped at the door. Bang! Bang! The gunshots with silencers were a bit muffled. The two gunmen were shot in the head and fell to the ground without saying a word. Alejandro held the pistol in both hands, tilted it slightly, and shot 3 more gunmen in the guard box. Putting the pistol back into the holster, he pulled out a 40A3 sniper rifle from the back seat. This was the military version of the Remington 700 shotgun, modified with a weighted stainless steel barrel. He wanted to climb onto the roof of the garage, snipe at the gunman in the blind spot and monitor the surrounding environment to discover the Reyes group's reinforcements as soon as possible. Broly walked to the door of the garage with a rifle in hand. In a car repair shop, a group of women are making drugs. Their working environment is extremely harsh. The Reyes group did not purchase any labor protection equipment for them. The hot air, toxic acid mist, choking smoke, and flickering high-pressure sodium lamps all harmed their health. Because these women had inhaled too many toxic chemicals, their skin was horribly rough and covered with spots, their limbs were thin, their bodies were atrophied, and their demeanor was a bit demented, as if they were walking zombies. They are prisoners of this factory, trafficked by Reyes from all over the world, and work in the factory day and night. The oldest among them has not been exposed to the sun for 3 years, and the longer one is not dead, but was cleaned by the management because of illness. There are several gunmen who supervise their work to prevent them from secretly sucking the finished product. Almost all of them are addicted to drugs because they have worked in drug factories for a long time. Chapter 13. The remaining gunmen were in the 3 offices of the garage. Most of them were wearing floral shirts, and some were shirtless, showing tattoos on their arms. The air conditioning in the office was on full blast. The gunmen were drinking ice-cold whiskey and holding cigars while playing cards. Rolls of US dollars were placed on the card table. Boom! An unparalleled force ripped the iron door of the office directly away from the door frame. The heavy iron door flew into a gunman and stuck him to the wall. Broly walked in. When the gunmen saw someone suddenly breaking in, they were frightened and a little panicked. A gunman tried to pick up a pistol on the card table and shoot, but was punched in the chest before he could pull the trigger. There was a crackling sound of broken ribs, a large piece of his chest was dented, and his internal organs were beaten to pulp. He moved forward, punching one after another, killing more than 10 gunmen in 2 seconds. Some gunners who reacted quickly finally drew out their pistols and rifles and started shooting. Broly picked up his rifle and started shooting at them. There was a burst of gunfire like exploding beans in the office, the whistling bullets punched holes one after another in the tables and chairs, the pierced whiskey flowed freely, and fragments of playing cards and dollar bills flew in the air. Not long after, the gunshots suddenly became silent. Accompanied by the sounds of several bottles being crushed and the sound of glass being rubbed against the floor tiles, Broly walked out of the office while carrying a bottle of whiskey and drinking. There were 4 or 5 bullet holes in his clothes, and there was just a blood spot on the skin inside. The bullets barely penetrated the skin. He had already tested it beforehand. When firing ordinary bullets from rifles and pistols, as long as they missed the vital point, they would cause only pain but no damage. Among light weapons, the only ones that could threaten him were sniper rifles and machine guns with higher energy. Even so, he tried not to get hit by the bullets because it really hurt. The pain made him angry, and his fighting power began to surge. Inastehi? Inaslanego. The gunshots in the office alerted the gunmen in other offices. They asked in Broly's direction as if they were facing an enemy. Boom! A gunman who quietly pulled the handle of a grenade was suddenly shot in the head by a bullet fired from the attic. The grenade rolled to the ground. The remaining gunmen rushed out of the office. After only a few steps, they were killed by Broly. Shot to the ground. He was like a hunter hunting rabbits during the hunting season, shooting these gunmen who were running wildly. Occasionally, he would swing his rifle like a baseball, beating the gunmen who tried to charge forward into a physical fight. Boring. Broly put away his rifle, a little bored. As the legendary Super Saiyan, Yuan constantly has new power emerging from the depths of his body, making him even more powerful. Facing such a gunman, he could no longer feel any joy in fighting. Ding! Congratulations to the host for reaching level 5 and gaining a skill point. Ding! Kill 100 people. The successful Saiyan people will definitely have blood on their hands. The host has killed more than 100 people in total. 20 revival points will be awarded. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the skill Oolong transformation. Broly had a question mark on his face. This transformation technique with only 5 minutes of transformation time is really embarrassing. He might as well add some points and switch to Pure's transformation technique. At least there is no time limit. Alejandro slid down from the roof with a sniper rifle on his back through a sling. He opened the office door with his fingers, took a look at the scene inside, and then looked at the broken corpses on the ground. This scene is a bit too big and I can't handle it alone. The corners of his mouth twitched, and several people's bodies were punched through with fists, and their flesh and internal organs were sprayed all over the floor. After hesitating for a moment, he took out an old mobile phone from his pocket and made a call. I'm Alejandro. There's a big party for 80 people. We need you to clean up the scene. He sent the satellite coordinates. Alejandro explained to Broly. This is a group of people who specialize in cleaning up the scene for the killer. They are very professional and have strict mouths. What to do with those women? Broly said, I only kill warriors, not ordinary people. We were wearing hoods and they didn't see anything, but if we just let them go, they would definitely die. It would be better to throw them to the Mexican police afterwards. Alejandro said after hesitation for a moment. With a gun in hand, he drove the frightened women into the garage kitchen and locked the door. They didn't wait long, and there was a sound of propellers beating the air in the sky. A medium-sized transport aircraft landed on the dirt road outside the garage. A dozen people, still wearing jackets on a hot day, got off the plane. They also carry large and small bags of professional tools. Chapter 14. Alex, you haven't contacted us for a long time. An old man with grey hair but wearing a very stylish leather jacket took off his hat and signaled to Alejandro. When I was working for the CIA, I was not required to do cleaning work at my own expense. Alejandro said with some heartache. The CIA doesn't do this job as neatly as we do, Alex. The old man said, snapping his fingers to signal his men to start working. Facing a scene that was obviously not caused by ordinary people, their expressions did not change at all. To be honest, if I were a canner, I would have already made a fortune. He looked at the corpses on the ground and whistled. Meat scraps, viscera fragments, and bone fragments all over the floor were swept into body bags. Bullets embedded in the wall were picked out with tweezers, and bullet casings were swept into a pile. Fingerprints and blood stains were wiped away with professional cleaning spray. Not long after, rolls of corpses tied with tape were loaded onto the plane. Alejandro painfully took out 2 rolls of gold coins from his pocket and handed them to the old man. You're welcome to come see me again next time. The old man flicked his cigarette, accepted the gold coins, and got into the plane gracefully. Who are they? Broly asked as he watched the plane fly away. A group of people who specialize in serving killers. They are people from the Continental Hotel. Alejandro said. Continental Hotel. This immediately piqued Broly's interest. The Continental Hotel is an institution set up by a group of people from the underground world to regulate the rules of the underground world. They provide killers with various services, including firearms and equipment, target information, accommodation and rest. And no one is allowed to kill anyone in the Continental Hotel. Desperate for revenge, he became a killer and spent some time in the Continental Hotel. I met CIA agent Matt during an operation and became his informant before leaving the Continental Hotel. The Continental Hotel is derived from the killer organization in the John Wick series of movies. I wonder if you have guessed it from the old man who collected the corpses in the previous chapter. After the Reyes group is resolved, give me one as well. Broly said, getting into the van. He was a little disappointed. He destroyed the Reyes group's drug factory and did not receive any revival points. Alejandro shrugged and started the van. The dilapidated van drove bumpily on the dirt road, quickly leaving the garage behind. "Who is it? Are you from the Mata group?" Filippo Torres had a beard, brown skin, and a large skull, like a lion's. At the moment, he was obviously angry, his eyebrows and hair were trembling, and his face was red due to congestion. Everyone in the room fell silent due to the dangerous aura he exuded. Everyone knew the consequences of offending Filiberto. After enduring the most painful torture, the corpse was hung from a street lamp, which was nothing more than the most common practice of the Reyes group. He once chopped people into pieces and put them in the refrigerator to give to his enemies. We are still confirming that almost no one saw them take action and they perfectly avoided all cameras. Bolton's face is not very good looking. He controls the armed forces of the Reyes group and uses cruel methods to attack the enemies of the Reyes group and the traitors within it. But they still left clues, which were given to us by our friends in the police station. The strength of Diaz's bulletproof car exceeded Alejandro's expectations. The engine compartment was not completely destroyed despite the damage from the grenade. The internal line in the police station sent a photo. A piece of hood that is packed in a sealed bag. Although there are traces of flames and serious shape-shifting on it, you can still clearly see the mark left by a shoe heel. Mutant. Filippo's expression suddenly became serious. Is he from the Mutant Brotherhood? To say who the Reyes group's most fearful enemy is, it is definitely not the powerful American departments such as the CIA and FBI, but the Mutant Brotherhood, a terrorist organization that does not follow rules at all. They are inextricably linked to the mutant factory, from where they bought more than a dozen brainwashed mutants as killers. It shouldn't be them. If it's really the Mutant Brotherhood, we should all be trapped in a hornet's nest with steel bars by now. Burton made a joke that wasn't funny. It should be the Mata group. They found a mutant killer and thought they could deal with us. Because of the bad relationship between the US government and mutants, there are no mutant members in the CIA or FBI. So they didn't suspect them. Chapter 15. Then what are you waiting for? Find a group of people to take revenge immediately. I want to make below Mata feel the pain. Filippo roared like an angry lion. As a drug cartel, their biggest fear is to be thought to be weak. Competitors and collaborators will tear up the behemoth Reyes group and devour it like hyenas that smell blood. He drank a glass of water and took a breath. Also, arrange for Antonio to follow my daughter, and those beasts from the Mata group can do anything. Fiesta Hotel Naucalpan, 27th floor. Alejandro was observing the school opposite with a huge monocular telescope. He patted the telescope and said, Swarovski, the noble in telescopes, CIA only uses the best. The image of the expensive telescope is so clear and sharp that you can almost clearly see the nose hairs in the guard's nostrils. Now we have two plans. One is to rush into the opposite school later and get her over. This is easier and won't cause too many accidents. The other is to intercept her in the middle, which will cause more trouble. Chaos, but also more like a drug cartel approach. Broly was dealing with a large pile of burritos and asked without looking up, which way can kill more people? Alejandro shrugged. Definitely the second type. Filippo Torres has arranged a lot of bodyguards for his daughter. Broly picked up a large bottle of beer and drank it all, then we'll wait here until they get out of school. Also, order 30 pies for me. San Ignacio Girls' School was established as early as when the Spanish ruled Mexico and was a model of a girls' school in the 18th century. It has developed to this day and is still one of the best schools in Mexico. Most of the students who study there are the daughters of high-level officials, foreign officials stationed in Mexico, and business celebrities. Before the 1990s, it was impossible for the daughter of a drug dealer to attend this historic school. Isabella Reyes's campus life was not pleasant. Her classmates were vaguely rejecting her, and the daughter of an American diplomat even humiliated her in person several times. When school was over, almost all the luxury cars in Mexico appeared at the school gate, and 5 identical Chevrolet Suburbans were particularly conspicuous. Several bodyguards in black escorted Isabella into the Sabre in the middle. Isabella picked up the tablet on her seat and tapped it absently. Why are there so many people today? She said, looking at the person sitting on the edge with a somewhat frightened look. He was a strong man with a dull expression. His eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of grey and there was no trace of energy. His rock-hard muscles stretched his suit so tightly that it was almost torn apart. Isabella had seen how they killed people, cruelly and efficiently, without any mercy. They looked like humans, but in fact they were just weapons crafted to kill people. Some people are causing trouble for the group recently, and the boss is worried that they are targeting the young lady," said the bodyguard sitting in the passenger seat. Isabella lay back on her seat expressionlessly and continued to play with the tablet in her hand. Suddenly, the cartoon playing on the tablet was interrupted. Maha fake, unable to connect to the internet. The bodyguard on the co-pilot immediately picked up the walkie-talkie and contacted the bodyguards in other cars. He did not simply regard the disconnection as a poor signal. "Check the signal. Check the surroundings for unusual movements. Someone may want to attack us." The bodyguards in other vehicles discovered a moment later that the signal to the entire convoy was down. "Quick! Speed up!" The bodyguard felt his heart twitching violently, as if it was being held by an invisible hand. He took out his dagger, cut open the seat, took out the rifle inside, loaded the magazine, and opened the safety. Boom! A violent explosion knocked the entire heavy Saban SUV to the ground, blocking the way of the convoy. The remaining vehicles tried to reverse, but found that the back road was blocked by a van. Broly, who was wearing a hood, jumped out of the car and kicked back the SUV that was trying to reverse into the van, colliding with the car in front of it. The target was the third vehicle. Alejandro pointed to the SUV where Isabella was, pulled the trigger, and used firepower to suppress the bodyguards in other vehicles. Broly nodded, casually reached into the car next to him, and broke the neck of a gunman who was shooting. He walked leisurely towards the SUV where Isabella was in amidst the hail of bullets. A strong man opened the door and got out of the car. "You chose the wrong target." Chapter 16. His voice was hoarse, as if his throat was filled with sandpaper. The next moment, the muscles all over the strong man's body suddenly burst out with powerful force. His strong body was ejected like a cannonball, and he punched Broly in the chest. Broly didn't dodge, but looked forward to it. Boom! There was a dull loud noise, as if a tire of a heavy truck had burst. Broly was sent flying straight away by this punch, smashing the glass of the shop on the street and lying on the ground, not knowing whether he was alive or dead. The people hiding in the shop immediately screamed and escaped from inside, running in all directions. The strong man grinned and twisted his neck. All the bones in that poor guy's body must have been broken, and there was no way he would still have intact internal organs. "I don't know what to say, but you dare to take advantage of the Reyes group. You will all die." The bodyguard in the passenger seat got out of the car, holding a rifle in his hand, and pulled the trigger on Alejandro. The fierce firepower immediately suppressed him in the car. Bullets fired at the body of the van, immediately turning it into a sieve. The car window glass was riddled with bullet holes. Alejandro opened the door and rolled out of the car. Only the engine compartment of the entire van could withstand direct rifle fire, so hiding in the van would only lead to death. The muscles on his face twitched. Broly, who originally had high hopes, didn't expect that he couldn't even withstand a punch. It seemed that he was doomed this time. He is not afraid of death, but hates not being able to avenge his wife and daughter. At the moment, Broly, who was lying on the ground, suddenly jumped up and stood up. He seemed to be unscathed, but his whole body had grown taller, and his clothes were bursting with his strong muscles. "You are very good. You are the first person who can make me feel the joy of fighting. I hope you can last longer." His voice became dull, and he walked out of the shop and stood in front of the strong man. The two were originally about the same height, but at the moment, he was taller than the strong man by a head and a half. Saiyans are already extremely irritable, and Broly is the best among them. The punch just made him cross the critical point and enter the angry state. The strong man's pupil shrank. Although he was mentally retarded due to being brainwashed, his instincts had been warning him wildly, telling him that Broly in front of him was in great danger. The next moment, he roared and punched Broly in the chest. Kaka! There was a crushing sound that made everyone feel uncomfortable. The bones of his hand were broken, and the finger bones were twisted like twists. Ah! He let out a scream, held his twisted palms, and took a few steps back. His dull face showed a look of fear. This was not an enemy of the same level at all. Broly was also stunned for a moment. He did not expect that the angry form would increase his strength to this extent. That mutant originally had about 70% of his strength, but after accidentally entering the angry state, he was as weak as a baby. How does this allow him to enjoy fighting? Broly tried his best to calm down and exit from his angry state. It's a pity that his mind is in chaos, and only the desire for destruction and fighting are left. What are you retreating from? Come on! Hold this monster back! When the bodyguard saw this scene, he ordered in fear, but he got into the SUV and knocked away the blown-up SUV in front of him. The powerful engine roared and drove the SUV to accelerate rapidly, trying to escape from here. He was terrified of Broly. Broly found that in his angry state, he couldn't control his emotions at all, and became even more irritable. It would be bad if things continued like this. He had no choice but to give up his plan to exit the angry form. He exerted force on the solace of his feet and disappeared from the place with a deafening sound, leaving only a deep footprint. His figure drew a long and narrow arc in the air, leapt across a distance of nearly 100 meters in an instant, and overtook the speeding SUV. Boom! He landed on the road about 10 meters in front of the SUV, and his feet sank deeply into the ground. Violent flying kick. Broly's powerful leg force like a bomb directly kicked back the SUV, which had already reached a speed of more than 50 yards per hour. The heavy car rolled over like a football and hit the building on the roadside. The solid front half of the body was kicked to pieces, and the driver and security guard in the front seat were turned into meat. Isabella was wearing a seatbelt and barely managed to save her life, but her head was still covered in blood. He easily tore open the body of the SUV and grabbed Isabella inside in his hands like a chicken. The next moment, he jumped up again, landed next to the mutant, pinched him unconscious, and held him under his arm. Chapter 17. Clean up and let's get out of here, Broly said with some difficulty, trying his best to restrain the destructive desire that was about to boil in his heart. The original van was completely scrapped, so Alejandro chose a Saban SUV that was still intact and left the scene. Was that your true strength just now? Alejandro's hands were still shaking constantly as he held the steering wheel. He has done a lot of dirty work for the CIA and knows some secrets that are not known to ordinary people. He knew that a PhD in physics had been exposed to gamma rays in an experimental accident and would turn into huge amounts of green monsters when angered. This is very similar to Broly's change just now. After he was provoked, his size became much larger. Although his appearance did not change much, his strength was like the legendary Hulk, which had greatly increased. Even a fully armed tank battalion cannot stop the Hulk in rage. If Broly has the strength of Hulk, he can indeed push the Reyes group. He felt like he was so close to succeeding in revenge for the first time. Broly has recovered from his anger form. He is now very tired, not physically exhausted, but mentally exhausted. In a sense, not yet. Even in the angry form, his strength will continue to increase as he fights constantly, stimulated by anger and fighting spirit. In this state, his IQ will plummet and his martial arts ability will plummet. As a legendary Super Saiyan, he is such a fortress. Regardless of whether it is the old movie version or the new movie version, Broly has received almost no qualified training, and still grows rapidly in the battle, crushing the battle-experienced Sun Wukong and Vegeta. In a CIA safe house in Mexico City, Alejandro is carrying a medical kit and treating Isabella's wounds. To the uninitiated, the two look like a father and daughter. It's just that Isabella turned extremely pale because of fear, and her teeth were constantly chattering, but she didn't dare to make the slightest move, which slightly ruined the warm atmosphere. Please let me go. No matter what the request is, my father will agree to it. Her voice trembled so much that Alejandro seemed not to hear her, and he just cleaned the wound with alcohol and bandaged it carefully. There was no emotion or anger in his expression, as if this little girl who could easily be strangled to death was just an unrelated stranger. Broly leaned against the wall and looked at Isabella. Whether in his previous life or this life, he had no good impression of drug dealers. Aren't you going to kill her? His words made Isabella jump up like a frightened deer and look at Alejandro with pleading eyes. Ha ha ha. She regards you as a life-saving straw, Broly said with a laugh. Alejandro's expression did not change at all. She still has uses, now is not the time to kill her. His words caused Isabella to completely collapse. Filippo Torres was in a state of fear and anger. His men found videos of the incident on the mobile phones of onlookers at the scene. Although the video is very blurry, it can still be seen that the mutant among the kidnappers is extremely powerful. The artificial mutant he bought from the mutant factory was no match. This was the first time he had seen such a powerful mutant, so powerful that it was terrifying. Where did the Mata group find this monster? Miguel Reyes and Burton Herrera, who were standing on the side, had equally unhappy faces. Philip Pato hooked Bolton's neck with one hand and said in an angry tone against Bolton's ear. Barrow Mata, he attacked my family without mercy. Only a madman would do this to my daughter. It's dangerous. Crazy beast. I want him dead. He can't wait until next year. I don't want you to kill his lawyer and accountant. And small roles like finance, I want you to kill his secretary, his partner. Anyone who has helped him, I want them to die. As long as someone licks the stamp and sticks it on the envelope with his name, I want them to die. Then find me everyone who has shaken hands with him and kill them all. Just because his daughter was kidnapped would not make Filippo lose his calm. What really made him so angry was because he felt that his life was threatened. No matter how much it costs, bring Francis here, especially the woman under him. They are the best at dealing with mutants. This threat reminded him of the humiliation and fear he felt when he was a robber. At that time, he and his brother Miguel had to give 2/3 of all the money they robbed to the gang boss. Later, they joined forces to kill the boss, went independent, and established the huge Reyes group. Chapter 18. I understand, boss. Bolton shrugged, and not long after, he got on a motorcycle or two and headed to the outskirts of Mexico City. This is a classic Harley street fighter with modified ape handlebars. It constantly weaves and overtakes in the traffic flow, which is very arrogant. The mutant factory is disguised as a very ordinary chemical plant, not far from the main road in Mexico City. The Mexican president's fragile control over the country makes them somewhat unscrupulous. The checkpoint at the gate outside the factory was obviously very familiar with Burton, so he directly opened the gate barrier and let him in. Burton parked his motorcycle in the parking lot, took out an ID card, and opened the heavy alloy door. Inside is a very ordinary chemical plant layout, with thick pipes, huge amounts of reaction tanks, and reactors. There are even many workers pretending to maintain production. He entered the real mutant factory through a dark and dank underground passage. Welcome to hell. Francis, the head of the mutant factory, was holding a folder in his hand and wearing a white coat, standing in front of Burton. The scene behind him was indeed no different from hell. Ice water, electric chair, waterboarding, soldering iron, sticks. The staff in the mutant factory are torturing the experimental subjects in the factory in various ways, bringing them into a near-death state in order to stimulate the mutant serum injected into the body. The shrill screams almost pierced people's eardrums. Some experimental subjects have been stimulated with the "there is truly no place on Earth more like hell than here. We have made 3 new mutants this time. I believe Mr. Filippo will be very satisfied." Francis' face narrowed, like a fox that has spotted its prey. A brainwashed mutant can be sold for at least $7 million, while the cost does not exceed $150,000. The bulk is just the X-weapon serum. In the chaotic Mexico, the cost of these experimental bodies is zero. Thanks to these wealthy drug lords, they have made billions of dollars and supplied dozens of mutant thugs to this chaotic land. This is like an arms race. As long as one party purchases mutants, the other party must purchase a corresponding number of mutants to maintain the balance of combat power. Mexico's chaos is its best salesman. Bolton took out his phone and clicked on the video. "No, Mr. Filippo asked me to come here because he wants to know if this person is your product." Francis's face became serious. He took the phone and replayed it back and forth, carefully observing Broly's movements in the video. "It's not a product of our company and I'm not even sure if he's a mutant." This was a variable that Francis didn't care about on the surface, but he was actually quite interested in it. As soon as he showed up, he killed the high-level lawyer of the Reyes group, destroyed one of our factories, and kidnapped Mr. Filippo's daughter. Burton described what Broly had done. 10 said it out, "These things cannot be hidden, it is better to say it directly. We also suspect that the destruction of a transfer station was also because of him. Now that the Reyes group has exposed its weak side, Mr. Filippo wants to hire you and Dust Angel to get rid of this person." Burton said. "Why should I help you? This person is very powerful and very troublesome." Francis handed the phone back to Burton. "Money is not a problem. Mr. Filippo is willing to spend a lot of money to ask you to help. What's more important is Mr. Francis. This group of people has broken the balance between the various groups. If the Reyes group is destroyed, the Mata group will only come to you with a gun, not money to buy mutant." Bolton was able to become the Reyes group's third mission not just because he was ruthless. Francis was silent for a moment. Although he doesn't take these drug lords seriously, the chaotic situation does hinder his business. The people behind him don't want to see this situation. "Okay, let's talk about price next." Palomata is with his family at the moment. The kitchen was busy as his wife and mother prepared dinner. In the deft hands of the housewife, the fragrant tortillas are fried, wrapped in cheese and minced meat, and the aroma is overflowing. Inanita, which looks like a large dumpling, is placed on a plate with slices of lime and tomatoes, which is mouth-watering. Fajita refers to the cow's diaphragm in Spanish, but it is a traditional home-cooked dish in Mexico. After evolution, it is not only grilled beef diaphragm, but also different parts of beef, chicken, pork, and seafood, grilled with chopped onions and green peppers. Add warm cream, guacamole, salsa, and more than 100 spices to create a spicy mori sauce. Chapter 19. The highlight is chi table. This dish is marinated pork wrapped in banana leaves and slow roasted. Because of the use of carmine seeds, the taste is very unique. Barlow at the moment was watching TV with his beloved son in his arms. "Dad, will Santa Claus give me a gift this year?" He rubbed his son's head. "Yes, my child, because you are my child of Balomata, Santa Claus dare not give you a Christmas gift." Barlow is slightly chubby, with two thick beards and a beer belly. He looks like an ordinary middle-aged man. A muscular man with tattoos suddenly walked in. There was also a mobile phone in his hand. Obviously he had received some information and wanted to report it. Barlow put the child in his arms on the sofa, lifted his pants and stood up, signaling with his eyes to his men to go out and talk. It wasn't until at the moment that you could see a hint of domineering power in his deep eyes. The two walked out of the room and came to the pavilion in the courtyard. A wide artificial river surrounds Mata Manor, and the sound of snorting of large animals can be heard from inside. It is the hippopotamus kept in the artificial river by Baroma Tower. Pulling out a cigarette, holding it in his mouth, taking out a lighter and lighting it, Balomata took a deep breath, and then slowly exhaled the smoke. Did something happen to the Reyes group? The men returned immediately. Yes, Filippoto's daughter was kidnapped. They wanted to keep this secret, but there was our informant on the scene. Palomata flicked the ashes into the river and pondered for a moment. Inform Munoz and prepare to take action against the Reyes group. Spend more money to let the mercenaries take action and let our own people preserve their strength. Spread the news about the kidnapping of Filippoto's daughter. Those hyenas, they will be more than willing to attack a lion that shows signs of weakness. His subordinates were a little confused. Boss, this is obviously someone trying to provoke a war between us and the Reyes group. Palomata spread his hands. Who would believe that we were not responsible for the kidnapping? In Mexico, except for me, Palomata, no one would dare to take action against this BD Filippoto. In this case, it is better to strike first. Wait for the Reyes group after the war is over. We will investigate who is causing the trouble. Too weak. Too weak. You are too weak. Broly's disappointed voice sounded in the basement of the safe house. He has gloves on his hands and is fighting against the captured mutant. The mutant was panting, his intricate muscles soaked with sweat, and his powerful straight punches were like a heavy rain. The X gene in his body not only gives him strength beyond human limits, but his ability to heal injuries is also far beyond ordinary people. The broken right hand recovered as before after just one night. If an ordinary person was hit by one of his fists, his skull would be shattered and his brains would be splattered. But Broly was like a petrel in a storm, dodging the incoming fists with ease. Such a boring battle finally reached the limit of Broly's patience, and he struck out the moment he avoided a straight punch. Mutant only had time to blur his vision before he felt a tearing pain in his abdomen. The pain made his vision go dark, as if the soul astral who had been hit by the punch had lost control of his body. Looking at Mutant kneeling on the ground, retching, Broly realized that he had overestimated his strength. This mutant's strength is indeed 70% of his, but his martial arts, reaction speed, physical strength, and ability to resist blows are all weaker than his own. In a real battle, he can beat them to the ground with just one hand. There is no way to improve your own strength by sparring with such an opponent. For a warrior, martial arts and ability are only part of determining strength. If you study alone without friends, you will be ignorant and ignorant. Sun Wukong can achieve such an achievement because of the hard work of his companions, teachers, and enemies along the way. His strength grew explosively after Piccolo's chapter, and powerful enemies like Vegeta and King Frieza took the greatest credit. I will come again in 5 days. I hope you can survive my punch, otherwise you will die. Broly wrapped the chain around the mutant, then picked up a bag of food that could last for 5 days, threw it on the ground, and locked the heavy iron door. The underground cell in the safe house is very solidly built, with walls up to 80 centimeters thick. Even for mutant, it is not easy to escape from it, not to mention that he is still tightly entangled in chains. Broly went back upstairs, opened the refrigerator, took out a bottle of sports drink and poured it into his mouth. The Mata group took action. They published nearly 100 reward orders on the dark web for members of the Reyes group. Chapter 20. Alejandro glanced at him, pointed to a web page and said, "There are reward orders hanging on the web page, with amounts ranging from large to small, ranging from millions to tens of thousands. The Mata group and the Reyes group have been competing with each other for more than 10 years. They already know the ins and outs and have almost listed most of the middle and high-level members of the Reyes group. There are also some earlier reward orders for military and police members, lawyers, newspaper reporters, TV hosts, and even local mayors who are opposed to the Mata group. In the past, the Mata group has put bounty orders on members of the Reyes group, but no bold killer has ever dared to take it. The door to hell is open," Alejandro said, tapping his fingers on the table. "Those killers will be happy to show us Mexican folk traditional art." Broly stood in the center of the living room, picking up 2 dumbbells weighing 300 kilograms and doing weight training, 1 set of 16, and he did 5 sets in a row. The dumbbells shook slightly, making a heavy metal impact sound. The weight that ordinary people could not lift was as light as a bird in his hands. This reward order is just the beginning. Things in Palomata are never that simple. Just assassinating a few cadres cannot shake the Reyes group. They will soon hire mercenaries to attack the Reyes group's transfer stations, laboratories, and production plants to launch attacks. We need to find a few helpers. Just 2 people are not like a mercenary force. US Mexico border, entry and exit ports. An RV stopped at the customs checkpoint. Archtaki and Lautaki stand act thais warto art deafening industrial heavy metal rock was playing in the car, and 2 white men in beach shirts and beach pants swayed to the music. "Passport?" asked the customs officer at the checkpoint. "Are you all Americans?" "Yes, it's the Americans." The driver in the car took out 2 passports and handed them to the staff. The staff took the passports, which were just a pair of thick ones. It is much easier to enter Mexico from the United States than from Mexico to the United States. Are you going to the port of Ensenada, Mexico?" he asked the 2 people in the car. "Yes, go take a look and try to catch a tuna." The staff returned the passport to the driver. "Is it the tuna season recently? Many people are going to enter Mexico these days, so I wish you a safe journey." The driver started the RV and sped down the Mexican highway. "Murafak, it seems there are many competitors for this job." The RV exited the highway at a fork in the road, drove on a dilapidated country road, and finally drove into a village. There were already 3 people in the village squatting on the roadside, smoking and waiting. "You're late, Wade." The 3 of them stood up. They were all tall and had thick calluses on their fingers and palms. "No way, the traffic coming out of Pendleton is as big as my intestines." Wade Wilson said. He climbed into the cabin of the RV and removed the mattress, revealing the guns and ammunition neatly arranged inside. There were even 2 packs of C4 explosives and more than 20 offensive grenades. Wade Wilson is Deadpool's real name. At the moment he does not yet possess super ability. The 5 people skillfully distributed various firearms and ammunition and checked the condition of the firearms. As you all know, the enemy this time is the Reyes group. In normal times, we would not have taken on such a job. But I heard that the Mata group recently found a very powerful mutant, and it is difficult to defeat the Reyes group. Perry said 5-man organizer Jack Hammer. "We'll fix it up here for a day and then head to Mexico City." Most of the 5 people are former members of the Special Forces, and even if they are not, they are retired Marines and have already experienced hundreds of battles. Some people just lay down in the shade of the trees to rest and regain their energy, others carried rifle target paper and went to the wasteland outside the village to calibrate their firearms. Jack Hammer, nicknamed Weasel, opened a bottle of cold beer and took a sip. "We're going to make a fortune this time, Wade. No one in all of Mexico is richer than Philip Pato and Barlow. He has a very broad network among mercenaries and can often organize people to take on tasks with high commissions. Although he does not participate in the battle, he can always draw a lot of money from it." The cell phone in his pocket suddenly rang. Jack Hammer glanced at the caller number and his expression became serious. He pointed to the phone and said to Wade. Chapter 21. He's a ruthless character, the guy nicknamed Sicario. After he finished speaking, he answered the phone. "Hello." A tired voice came from the other end of the phone. "You are in Mexico now." Jack immediately denied it. "How is that possible? I'm in New York and I got a big job." There was a sneer on the other end of the phone. Well, if I bump into you, I won't hold back. Jack instantly panicked. Okay, I'm in Mexico, what's going on? The other end of the phone said, let me join your team and take over the tasks of the Mata group. I will give you an address and we will meet up in 2 days. An ordinary roadside stall selling mainly fried pork rinds, gorditas, and chos. The large pieces of pork skin are fried like corn tortillas, very greasy, and paired with sour pickled cucumbers, the flavor is great. Gorditas are very similar to rugiemo. They are stuffed with diced pork rinds, grilled meat, and cheese, and are smeared with salsa. One of them is half full. Chos are a Spanish snack, similar to chos, with fried sweet dough sprinkled with a layer of icing sugar. The owner of the stall is a middle-aged Mexican with a beer belly. At his peak, he could make more than 5,000 gorditas a day, but at the moment he was so busy that he was sweating profusely and exhausted. A very tall and strong Asian man sat in front of the stall owner and stuffed his prepared food into his mouth almost at a speed of one mouthful. Alejandro crossed his legs helplessly, sitting on a plastic chair and reading a novel. The image of him in a suit and a dirty stall looks very inconsistent. He was used to Broly's prodigious appetite. A dilapidated RV came from the corner of the street and stopped suddenly in front of the stall. The window was rolled down, revealing Jack's face. Hey Alex, long time no see. Wade, who was sitting in the passenger seat, opened the car door, walked to the stall, pulled out a plastic chair, and sat next to Broly. He said to the boss. Give me a cake like this. Sorry, sir, the materials are no longer available. The stall owner actually felt relieved when he said this. Wade shrugged helplessly and reached out to touch Broly's tail around his waist. Friend, where did you buy this furry belt? It's very fashionable. Broly had already trained his tail so that it was no longer a weakness. He swung his tail and shook off Wade's hand. This isn't a belt, it's my tail. Wade immediately pulled out a tissue and wiped his hands. Sorry, is your tail like a Na6 braid, an organ? Broly was a little strange, Na6. Alejandro coughed and said, the Na6 are a creature from the movie Avatar, and the braids, are their ex-organs. Broly silently took out a tissue, wiped his greasy hands, then picked up Wade like a chicken and planted it upside down in a trash can on the roadside. Do you really want to die, my friend? As he spoke, he lifted up the heavy metal trash can and clamped it with his arms. The thick trash can suddenly shape-shifted like ooze, hugging Wade tightly. Wade struggled violently, his exposed legs dangling wildly. No, man, I was just joking, please don't do this, please let me out and I'll apologize to you. Broly put the trash can back in its place. If an apology helps, then why do we need the police? By now, Wade was finally panicking. Puff. A laugh. Jack. Damn FK. I heard you laughing. Wade fluttered angrily. Pfft, Wade, you know, I have been strictly trained and I usually don't laugh unless I can't help it. Pfft. An ordinary office building facing the street, with formally dressed white-collar workers constantly coming in and out. No one would have imagined that the 5th floor of this office building is a laboratory of the Reyes Group. The crudely processed poison slurry in the jungle is dried under the irradiation of high-temperature sodium lamps and becomes finished cocaine. Every year, nearly 1.5 tons of products are manufactured here. The Reyes Group keeps things very secretive. Even the clerks working downstairs don't know that a drug nest is nearby, producing these crazy and depraved little powders day and night. Fortresses are always breached from within, and the Mata Group's moles within the Reyes Group discovered the laboratory. Chapter 22. A somewhat dilapidated van was parked in a parking space across the street from the office building. Broly and others were sitting among them, wearing masks on their heads. Kill everyone inside. Below Mata will give us $200,000. The big one will get 50,000. The remaining few of us will share 150,000. This is Fenardo from the Mata Group. He will follow us to check the results of the battle, but don't take action. Okay, now everyone looks at their watches, checks their weapons, and we will set off in 3 minutes. Jack said. Broly is a mutant, so he can get the most money. This is the hidden rule of mercenaries. There was a sound of gun bolts being pulled, and several people put their rifles in their traveling bags and walked to a building next to the office building. According to the intelligence of the trader, cameras were installed in the elevators and safety passages of the office building. If you break in from the inside, you will be discovered immediately. After arriving at the top of the building, Wade opened his travel bag, took out an anchor hook ejector, took aim and pulled the trigger. A whistling sound. The thrown anchor was hooked with a rope and nailed to the outer wall of the office building. Broly took the lead, hooked on the rope, and slid towards the office building. He kicked the window frame of the office building, and directly kicked the entire window off the wall, leaving only a hollow window hole. The members of the Reyes group indoors were still busy making drugs. Faced with the sudden attack, they had no time to react. Broly moved. Boom! The gunman closest to him was kicked, and his body of about 100 kilograms was kicked into the air. The gunman's eyes bulged and he lost his breath in mid-air. He consciously restricted the output of his power to prevent his identity from being recognized. Before the remaining people could react, Broly pulled the trigger. The hot empty cartridge case was thrown from the barrel of the gun, and the high-speed bullets penetrated the fragile flesh and blood. In the blink of an eye, everyone in the room was shot to the ground. Experience plus 10, experience plus 8, experience plus 9, experience plus 8. As the level increases, the experience he can gain from these miscellaneous soldiers becomes less and less. Wade jumped into the room second, rolled on the spot with great agility, and then half-knelt on the ground, ready to shoot. But judging from this series of actions, he is indeed an experienced warrior and not just a talker. Realizing that everyone in the room was dead, he stood up angrily and glanced at Broly in surprise. There are quite a few mutants working as mercenaries. After all, people have to eat. It's not like Wade has never worked with mutant before, but this is the first time he has seen mutant with such clean and neat skills. Most of these mutants are very proud of their abilities and look down on ordinary people, but most of the first to die on the battlefield are these guys with their nostrils turned upward. What killed them was the gun they didn't take seriously. Continue to advance, there are probably nearly a dozen enemies here. Alejandro slid into the room from the ropes. He had no doubts about Broly's performance. He had seen Broly's true strength. This time I'll be at the front. Wade said that although on the surface he seems to like talking nonsense, making bad jokes, and looking like he is not stingy, he actually has a very high self-esteem. Being stuffed into the trash can by Broly was the biggest loss he had suffered in recent years. Therefore, he wanted to show his strength and regain some face. Although Broly had some heartache experience, he thought about it and did not stop Wade. Alejandro was worried. Be careful, I received a tip that the Reyes group has placed mutant in some important strongholds. Wade made a reassuring gesture and walked in front holding the rifle. The gunshots had alerted other Reyes group people in the office building. In CQB, Close-Order Battle abbreviated as CQB, that is, Indoor Close Combat, the player at the front is the most dangerous. He carefully moved along the corridor, taking the corner as the axis, aiming towards the end of the corridor, and then moved cautiously. Although Wade was holding a breath in his heart, he was not rash because of this and was still very cautious. He was right to be cautious, and there was indeed a gunman from the Reyes group ambushing him in the corner. As Wade advanced, he pulled the trigger and fired several bursts, killing the gunman who was ambushing at the other end of the corner. The two sides exchanged fire fiercely in the narrow space, and the whizzing bullets left bullet marks on the wall. The mercenaries quickly gained the advantage with their accurate marksmanship. A gunman from the Reyes group was constantly shot to death, and rivers of blood flowed for a while. Chapter 23. Suddenly, everyone could hear the dull sound of footsteps, but because of the messy gunfire, they could not distinguish the direction of the footsteps. Boom! A big hole was suddenly knocked out of the wall the mercenaries were leaning against, and a strong figure leaned out. Mutant! A cry of surprise. The man who broke through the wall was 2 meters tall, with brown rock skin. Because he was too strong, his body was almost made into a square shape by the bulging muscles. The face is more like that of an orangutan than that of a human, and it looks like its brain capacity is worrying. His hand went straight towards Wade. According to his judgment, Wade standing at the front should be the captain of this mercenary. Wade, who was not short in stature, stood in front of this mutant, as weak as a baby. Just when Wade was about to knead him into a pulp, a hand suddenly grabbed the mutant's wrist. Stone Gorilla, your opponent is me. Broly had an extremely excited expression on his face. Because he discovered that this mutant was stronger than him. You're looking for death, monkey. The mutant was angered by Broly's name, and punched Broly with his other hand. The punch was as powerful as a heavy truck roaring towards him. Boom! The punch was caught again. Broly grinned, and he could hear the bones in his arm creaking. Boom! He hit Mutant's waist and abdomen with a knee, sending Mutant's heavy body flying into the air, crashing through the ceiling, and getting stuck in the concrete steel bars. This is my enemy, you are not allowed to interfere. You're looking for death. Chap put his hands on the ceiling and pulled his body down with difficulty. He is not a product of the mutant factory, but a mutant who voluntarily joined the Reyes group. Unlike those assembly line products whose intelligence is defective due to brainwashing, he is reused in the Reyes group and his status is not low. Alejandro tightened his grip on the rifle. This is information he investigated through the power of the CIA. He is Chipura, a mutant, and his ability is rock skin. He can withstand rifle grenades and anti-material rifle fire head-on. Ordinary light weapons are ineffective against him. Moreover, after the rock skin is damaged, it can repair and heal quickly. He is good at Brazilian journey. Technique, pay attention to his grapple. Also, kill him. At the end, his voice trembled. Broly glanced at Alejandro, who was a little abnormal, and nodded solemnly. Chap smiled ferociously and said, "The Mata group has investigated my ability very clearly. I will be gentle when crushing all your bones." He originally wanted to use his identity to bring a few packages of products from the laboratory back to use at the party at night. As long as the quantity was small, Philip Pato didn't care. It's just that Chap didn't expect to bump into this group of gunmen from the Mata group, and it seemed that he could take all the finished products in the laboratory. As long as everyone is killed and the laboratory is set on fire, the Mata group will be the best target. Interesting. Broly forced a smile and stood in front of Chap, looking up at him. "Come on, try your moves and see if you can hit me." There was a moment of silence in the factory, everyone was stunned, even Chap was stunned for a moment. Wade suddenly looked enlightened. "I know. You must be artists like Billy and Van, ready to stage a locker room duel like Love Wrestling here." Broly raised his eyebrows and looked at Alejandro with a confused expression. Alejandro helplessly covered his face with one hand. "You don't want to know." Chap's huge body was unexpectedly flexible, and he hit Broly in the face with a sharp elbow, then lifted his body and threw him heavily to the ground. Boom! The whole building was shaking violently, as if there was an earthquake, and countless dust shook down. A huge amount of depression was created on the floor by the brute force, and the panicked people downstairs could be seen through the crack. "What a mess, kid! Your spine should be broken. This is the price of arrogance," Chipu said angrily, and the next moment, his expression was no longer so confident for the first time. Broly rubbed his head and stood up from the rubble. "That's right. This is the fight I want, this is the enemy I want. The blood is boiling, so you have to hold on, friend," he said with a maniacal laugh. Then he made a lightning-fast move, and his sharp legs shot out like cannonballs, kicking Chap in the face. The rocks collapsed, and Chap seemed to have been hit head-on by a train. He was kicked out and flew outside through the previously destroyed window. Chapter 24. Broly stood on the window frame and turned around. "This place is too narrow. It's not a good place to fight. You deal with the enemies inside, and I'll kill this Lep or Chap outside," he said and jumped directly. Looking at Broly, Wade swallowed hard, turned his head and said to Alejandro, "Hey, Alex, you're not going to tell Broly what I just said." Alejandro sneered and walked ahead, preparing to clean up the remaining Reyes group gunmen. Chap's heavy body made cracks on the ground. He slapped the ground angrily, stood up, then clenched his hands into fists and looked at Broly, who jumped down. "I'm going to crush your bones." The wound on his head from Broly's kick had healed, and he swung a heavy swinging fist at Broly. The bulging muscles stretched the rock skin, and with such a destructive punch, even if the rhinoceros is hit, it will be exploded instantly. Broly also swung a punch, coming first and hitting Chap heavily on the chest. Chipu's powerful and heavy punch was deflected by him. Boom! The powerful force of this punch pushed Chipu more than 10 meters and hit a telephone pole on the side of the road. The battle between the two monsters left passers-by screaming and fleeing this dangerous place. "Your fist is just an itch to me." Chap's rocky face grinned ferociously and stood up. "It seems that your rocky skin has made you lose your sense of pain. I will let you recall the taste of pain, haha. Look down at your wounds." Broly's gaze was terrifying. Chap lowered his head in confusion, only to discover the ferocious radial wounds on his chest, as if there was a force exploding from the punch. The solid rock skin was penetrated directly, exposing the inner muscles. "This is impossible." The rocky skin squirmed and began to heal, but Chap had no sense of security as he had in the past when facing a hail of bullets. "This is the power of Chi, Iron Fist," Broly said, and the next moment, he stepped hard on the ground with both feet, and his whole body rushed forward like lightning, reaching a distance of more than 10 meters in an instant. Bang! He put a knee on Chap's chin, lifting his heavy body into the air. Da-da-da! A sudden shower of straight punches exploded with energy, cracking Chapu's newly grown rocky skin. Chap's recovery speed couldn't keep up with Broly's destruction. Boom! Chapu fell to the ground in embarrassment, coughing violently, and blood and internal organs were coughed out of his mouth. His internal organs were severely damaged, and if it weren't for Mutant's tenacious vitality, he would be a dead man now. "It seems you will bleed too," Broly said with some disappointment. Although Chap is quite strong, even surpassing himself in strength, he is still too weak. He doesn't know how to use his own power at all, it's so boring. "This kind of battle, I'd better kill you." "Oh, let me go, let me go. I know many secrets of the Reyes group. I am willing to join the Mata group." Chap squirmed, trying to beg for mercy. "Awesome, you caught Chap. Below Mata will do whatever you ask for." Fenardo, who was sent by the Mata group to follow the mercenaries, got out of the van and shouted with surprise. Broly glanced sideways at him, then grabbed Chap's head and lifted him up. Then he punched Chap through the chest, and the bloody fist came out from his back. Chap's heart was shot through, his eyes were wide open, and his pupils shrank to small points. After awakening super ability, he regarded himself as the son of destiny and ordinary people as ants. Unexpectedly, he was killed so neatly, without even a chance to struggle. In his life, his hands were stained with the blood of innocent people, and what impressed him most was the mother and daughter. "What's that prosecutor's name?" Before he could remember that impressive name, his vision had completely darkened. Experience plus 75 ding. Mutant first kill. These human mutants have endless potential. This is the first mutant you kill. You will be rewarded with 20 points. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Wolf Fang Wind Fist. Why did you kill him? A living chap is worth much more than a dead one. Fenardo said dissatisfied. "Do I need your permission to kill someone?" Broly pulled out his fist, and the cold evil energy frightened Fenardo back a few steps, his feet weakened, and he sat on the ground. Chapter 25. Thanks. Alejandro smelled of gun smoke and there were 3 or 4 bullet marks on his body armor. The gunmen of the Reyes group resisted fiercely and they spent a lot of effort. Fortunately, no one was killed. He looked back at Chap's body in the back seat, his eyes a little moist. "No, just think of this as a reward for the food during this period." Broly lay on the seat of the van, closing his eyes and concentrating. Satan's fighting skills are much stronger than he expected. This martial skill is not weak, but Satan has not exerted its full power. Although martial arts become more difficult to improve as you advance, Broly has upgraded his Satan fighting skills to level 11 during this period of fighting and training. If you level up again, you will reach level 12, and you will be able to get another passive skill by then. He hesitated for a while and did not use skill points to upgrade. Broly's ability is extraordinary, and it takes almost no time to level up this type of martial skill. He plans to use his skill points to upgrade skills that are difficult to practice and improve, such as teleportation. Jackhammer, the weasel sitting at the very back, was discussing the commission with Fenardo. There is one more powerful mutant, and obviously the reward cannot be calculated at the previous price. And Fenardo is still upset about Broly killing Chap. Chap is very powerful and not very loyal to the Reyes group. He is very likely to be instigated to join the Mata group. Finally, Funado reluctantly raised the commission to $800,000. Among them, Broly will get 600,000, and the remaining 2 people will share the 200,000 equally. Jack was a little high-spirited. The income of mercenaries was not as much as laymen thought. $800,000 was a good start. With Broly's powerful fighting force, they will make a fortune in the coming battle. Within 2 days, Chap's body was hung on a billboard on the side of the highway into Mexico City. The battle between the Reyes group and the Mata group immediately became fierce, and the bodies of middle and high-level members of both parties constantly appeared throughout Mexico City. Gunfire was everywhere in the city, and large numbers of citizens began to flee Mexico City. In the next week, Broly and the mercenaries took on several more missions from the Mata group, gaining a reputation in the underground world of Mexico City. One of the mercenaries was injured in the battle and returned to the United States to recover. Frequent battles directly raised Broly's level to level 6, and 3 of the mutants contributed a lot of experience points. It's not like no one has ever wondered if Broly was the mutant who kidnapped Filippo Tori's daughter. But because the live video only recorded the second half, in which Broly's height increased to more than 2 meters due to his angry form, and he was wearing a hood, the suspicion was still just a suspicion. The Mata group did not offend a powerful mutant like him during the war because of a shred of suspicion. Francis is watching the surveillance video on the big screen. In the video, Broly is hitting a sandbag with his upper body naked. The strong muscles seemed to be made of steel blocks, with smooth lines. Sweat flowed freely, dampening the messy black hair. The sandbag in front of him was not a sandbag in the traditional sense, but a huge steel high-pressure gas tank. The tank was cut open, filled with iron sand, and hung on a steel frame by steel cables. The wall of the high-pressure gas tank is up to 2 centimeters thick, and with the iron sand inside, the weight is not much different from a solid piece of iron. If an ordinary person hits it with his fist, there will be no other result except breaking his body. But every time Broly punched, the heavy gas tank was raised high. The tough tank wall is already covered with deep and shallow fist marks. The gas tank made a blood-curdling whistling sound as it swung, reverberating and hitting Broly, who was instantly punched and sent flying. He is fighting against his own power. What a terrifying monster! No wonder he can easily subdue our products. Even Chap died in his hands. His body shape and appearance have not changed specifically due to his super ability. Francis' eyes almost shined, so powerful. The mutant is simply the perfect warrior and the perfect experimental material for the X-Weapon program. The serum extracted from his body might be able to mass-produce powerful super soldiers. Not all mutants are suitable for extracting serum. The serum of mutants like Chipu has extremely poor compatibility with ordinary people, and there are almost no cases of successful activation of super abilities. The headquarters once imprisoned a mutant with the ability to heal quickly, but unfortunately he escaped from the laboratory. Bolton, who was standing next to him, looked very ugly, and he asked Francis, "Why are there signal transmitters in your products, but we don't know about it?" If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you're notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.